So now's a great time to take a step back, figure out where we are in this whole process, and come up with a game plan to wrap this up. If we take a look at what we've done so far, we've pretty much completed the fracturing and the main, sim portion of the plates. So we'll say that fracturing is pretty much all done. We have to mess around with that activate and whatnot, but that's not going to take too long. The second thing is we need to animate these plates. That's where we're at right now. We also want to create little puffs of dust that go from the foreground on backwards. So again, that whole idea is that before these plates start moving, these little puffs of dust are going to really quickly go from the foreground to the background. They're going to race forward, and then everything starts moving. So dust puffs. And then we also got to figure out what to do with the in-between areas. And again, for that, I'm picturing some occasional violent explosions, not everywhere, but just in little pockets so that we have some rocks flying upwards. So that is what we have to do. This whole course is a bit longer than what I usually do, but to make this effect work, it just needs a lot more. So hang in there if this has been a bit of a long process for you. But this is all great stuff, and realistically, this is the sort of detail that you would be going through if you were working on a professional project. So anyway, this brings us to animation. What do we want to do for animation? Well, this is a bit tricky to figure out. It actually took me a little while. I tried all kinds of different methods for the animation of the plates. And what I found is that this is, it's not the easiest thing to figure out, okay? Because if you want to go the route of quaternions and custom rotation axes, and you want to rotate a piece. So let's say that basically I want to go through with a for each loop and rotate one of these pieces, right? I can create a quaternion that basically creates a little handle that I can twist right here, and I can procedurally animate 43 pieces. But getting this axis and, going through the vex is fairly heavy. Again, we're already at 4 hours in this course, and I found a better way. So that's one way you could do it. You could hand animate all this stuff, but if you hand animated that, that's 43 pieces. It's quite a bit. Also, the hand animation is not going to feel as organic. You're not going to get those subtle movements very easily. Even if you layer on things on top of your animation, it's going to be hard to get that organic feel to it. And if you were at a studio, the director might want to change something drastically, and if that happens, you might be stuck reanimating 20, 40 pieces over and over again, and that's not ideal either. So, the best way I found for doing this is something like this. Let me draw this out so that we can talk about it before I start using notes. Okay, so plane's right here. Imagine that we have a plane that's sitting underneath this plane. And this has a mountain top. So we have faces that are going up and down. So, it's kind of doing this whole thing, right? Well, we can move that plane with a noise over time. And what we can also do is take the whole thing, turn it into a volume collision, and then animate it moving upwards, so that eventually these little peaks begin pushing these pieces upwards and they begin perturbing the whole surface. When that happens, these pieces are going to start flying upwards. And assuming that we don't have any gravity, they're just going to keep on flying upwards, and they'll be floating up in the air, and they're going to also start rotating a bunch. So imagine this piece, it's rotating, however it does, and it's also flying up in the air. Well, that motion looks really good for what we're trying to do. The only problem that we'll get to eventually is when we have a piece up in the air. So let's say that we have you know, something like this. It's up in the air. It's all rotated and stuff. The thing is, we need to keep all the pieces close to ground level because that's where our camera is framing everything. And if we have pieces flying up, it's going to block the view of the temple. So when we transfer these pieces back to everything, right, we're going to take the motion, transfer it back to the fractured pieces and all that. When that happens, all I'm going to say is, hey, anything you do in Y, X, Z, whatever, don't do it. And I only want to keep the rotations that are getting generated by this simulation. That will create a situation where our plane will still be level to where it needs to be in the camera. We have procedural rotation, and it's going to behave in a way that you really wouldn't be able to get if you did the quaternion route or if you hand animated this stuff. It really is going to be the best way that I can think of for doing this. So that is the idea going forward here. We'll try this out in the next video.